Clara Hale slammed her father's ledger shut, the sound cracking through the study like a gunshot. "You sold me." Her voice didn't shake. It cut. Edmund Hale wouldn't meet her eyes, and that told her everything. "The Mercer boy needs a wife, and we need his money. It's business, Clara." She laughed bitter and sharp. "I'm not livestock, father." He finally looked at her, his face hard as Montana granite. "You're a Hale. You'll do what's necessary for this family." Clara's hands curled into fists. "Watch me." Before we begin, please subscribe to our channel and follow this story to the end. Comment the city you're watching from, so I can see how far my story has traveled. Now let's continue. Clara didn't wait for her father's response. She turned and walked out of his study, her boots loud on the wooden floor, each step a declaration. Behind her, Edmund called her name twice, then stopped. He knew better than to chase her when she got like this. He'd seen that look in her eyes before, the same wild defiance her mother had carried before consumption took her 10 years back. The ranch yard stretched empty in the late afternoon sun, dust swirling where the wind caught it. Clara headed straight for the stables, needing the comfort of honest work, honest sweat. Anything to wash away the feeling of being bartered like grain at market. Clara. Her sister Vivian appeared from the main house. Skirts rustling, face painted with concern that didn't reach her eyes. "Father told me what he said to you. You can't possibly be upset about—" "Don't." Clara spun to face her. "Don't you dare tell me I should be grateful." Vivian's mouth tightened. "The Mercers are the wealthiest family in 3 counties. Colton Mercer could have anyone." "Then let him have anyone else." Clara started walking again. "You're being childish." Vivian hurried to keep pace, her fancy boots slipping in the dirt. "This marriage could save us. Father's debts. Father's debts aren't my burden to carry by spreading my legs for some rich cowboy who probably doesn't even know my name." Vivian gasped. "How can you be so crude? How can you be so willing to sell your own sister?" "I'm not selling you. I'm trying to save this family." Vivian grabbed Clara's arm, forcing her to stop. "Or have you forgotten what happens if we lose this ranch? Where do you think we'll go?" "Clara, what do you think happens to unmarried women with no money and no prospects?" Clara yanked her arm free. "I'd rather starve free than eat well in a cage." "You're a fool." "Better a fool than a coward." Vivian's hand cracked across Clara's face, the slap sharp and sudden. For a moment they both froze, staring at each other. Clara's cheek burned, but she didn't flinch, didn't raise her hand to touch the sting. "I hate you sometimes," Vivian whispered, her voice breaking. "I hate how easy it is for you to throw everything away, to not care what happens to the rest of us." "I care," Clara said quietly. "But I won't be the sacrifice you all decided I should be, without even asking me first." She left Vivian standing there and made it to the stables before her composure cracked. Inside, surrounded by the familiar smell of hay and horses, she finally let herself feel the full weight of it. Her father had promised her to Colton Mercer. Not asked, not suggested, promised. Talking to yourself or the horses? Clara whirled around. A man stood in the stable doorway, backlit by the setting sun, tall and broad-shouldered hat pulled low. She couldn't see his face clearly, but something in the way he carried himself spoke of money and authority. "This is private property," she said, her voice harder than she felt. "I know." He stepped inside and the light caught his face. Strong jaw, dark eyes, the kind of handsome that came from good breeding and better living. "I'm Colton Mercer." Clara's stomach dropped, but she kept her expression neutral. "Come to inspect your purchase." His eyebrows rose slightly. "Excuse me." "My father sold me to you this morning. Didn't he mention that part?" Colton removed his hat, turning it slowly in his hands. "Your father and mine discussed a potential arrangement, but I don't recall purchasing anything." "No." Clara crossed her arms. "What would you call it then?" "I'd call it 2 old men trying to solve their problems by throwing their children at each other and hoping something sticks." The answer surprised her enough that she almost smiled. "Almost. And you're just going along with it." "Are you?" "Hell no." This time, he did smile, just a slight curve at the corner of his mouth. Good. Neither am I. Clara studied him, trying to figure out if he was lying, if this was some kind of test. Then why are you here? Curiosity. He moved closer, stopping at a respectful distance. My father's been pushing this marriage for weeks. Kept telling me about the Hale daughter, how she'd make a perfect wife for a man building an empire. But he never mentioned your name. Just kept calling you the girl. Clara, she said. My name is Clara. Colton. He extended his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, she shook it. His grip was firm, calloused from work, despite the money behind his name. You ride. She nodded toward the stalls. Every day. It's the only time I feel like myself. Show me. It wasn't a request, but it wasn't a command either. More like an invitation. Clara should have said no, should have sent him away. But something in his eyes made her curious too. She saddled her mare, an aging chestnut named Rosie, who'd been her companion since childhood, and Colton handled his own horse with easy competence. They rode out past the ranch boundaries into the open country where the land rolled wild and free. Neither spoke for a long time. Just let the horses run, let the wind scour away the day's tensions. When they finally slowed miles from the ranch, the sun had begun its descent, painting the sky in shades of amber and crimson. My father says I need to settle down, Colton said, breaking the silence. Says a man can't build something lasting without a wife and heirs to pass it to. And what do you say? I say he's probably right, even though I hate admitting it. He glanced at her. But I also say that if I'm going to spend my life with someone, I'd rather it be someone real. Not some polished society woman who sees me as a bank account with a pulse. Clara snorted. I'm about as far from polished as you can get. I noticed. There was approval in his voice. You always this blunt? You always this forward with women your father wants you to marry? Only the ones who slap horses better than most men I know. Despite herself, Clara laughed. It startled her how natural it felt, how easy. She couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed with someone who wasn't trying to change her or fix her or mold her into something more acceptable. Look, Colton said, his tone shifting to something more serious. I don't know you and you don't know me. But I do know this, our fathers are going to push this match whether we want it or not. They've got their reasons, most of them having to do with land and water rights and business deals that don't concern us much. So what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we take control of it ourselves. He turned his horse to face her directly. We get to know each other, really know each other. No pressure, no expectations. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, we tell our fathers to find another solution. And if they don't accept that, his jaw tightened, then we deal with it together instead of separately. Clara wanted to say no, wanted to tell him she didn't need his help or his partnership or whatever this was, but the truth sat heavy in her chest. Alone, she had no power. Her father would force this marriage or find another way to use her. At least this way she'd have some say in how it played out. Fine, she said. But I'm not pretending to be something I'm not. You want to know the real me, you get the real me. Rough edges and all. I wouldn't want it any other way. They shook on it there in the fading light, two strangers making a pact that would either save them or destroy everything they thought they knew about their lives. The ride back to the ranch was quieter, both of them lost in thought. When they reached the stable yard, Edmund Hale was waiting, his face thunderous. Where the hell have you been? He demanded, looking between them. You can't just ride off with a man unchaperoned, Clara. What will people think? I don't care what people think, Clara said, dismounting. And if you're so concerned about my reputation, maybe you shouldn't be selling me to the highest bidder. Edmund's face went purple. You ungrateful? Mr. Hale. Colton's voice cut through the brewing argument, calm but firm. Clara and I were discussing the arrangement our fathers proposed. I wanted to meet her properly before any decisions were made. Edmund's anger shifted to something more calculating. And what's your impression, Mr. Mercer? I think your daughter is exactly the kind of woman who could help build something real out here. Colton's eyes met Clara's briefly. Strong, capable, not afraid of hard work or straight talk. Edmund blinked clearly, not expecting that answer. Well, good. That's good. We'll be seeing more of each other, Colton continued. Getting to know one another before we make any commitments. I'm sure you understand. It wasn't a request, and Edmund knew it. He nodded, still off balance. Of course. Of course. Clara, why don't you go inside and help your sister with dinner? Clara bit back the urge to snap at being dismissed like a child. Instead, she nodded to Colton. Mr. Mercer? Miss Hale. She felt his eyes on her as she walked toward the house, felt the weight of what they'd just started. Inside, Vivian waited by the window, her face pinched with something that might have been jealousy, or might have been fear. You rode alone with him, Vivian said. For hours. We talked. About what? Clara pulled off her dusty gloves. About not being someone else's pawn. And what did he say to that? He agreed. Vivian's laugh was sharp and disbelieving. Clara, men like Colton Mercer don't agree to anything unless it benefits them. Whatever he told you, whatever promises he made, he didn't make promises. Clara interrupted. He made a deal. We get to know each other honestly, and then we decide if this works for us. Not for father, not for his family. For us. You actually believe that. I don't know what I believe yet. Clara headed for the stairs, exhausted from the day's emotional weight. But I'd rather believe in the possibility of choosing my own path than accept that I have no choice at all. That night, Clara lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word of her conversation with Colton. He'd been different from what she expected, less arrogant, more thoughtful. But that didn't mean she could trust him. Trust was earned, not given freely, to handsome cowboys with silver tongues and clever words. The next morning brought Colton back to the ranch, this time with his father, Victor Mercer. Victor was everything Clara had heard, and more imposing, sharp-eyed, the kind of man who measured everything in terms of profit and loss. He looked at Clara the way someone might examine a horse before purchase, assessing her worth with cold calculation. So you're the girl, Victor said, his voice rough as gravel. Edmund's been talking you up something fierce, says you know ranching better than most men. I know work, Clara replied, meeting his gaze steadily. Don't know if that makes me better than anyone, just means I'm not afraid of it. Victor's eyes narrowed, then he glanced at his son. She's got spine, I'll give her that. She's got more than spine, Colton said quietly. The two fathers moved off to discuss business, leaving Clara and Colton standing in the yard again. The morning sun was already hot, promising another scorching day. Your father seems pleasant, Clara said dryly. Colton's laugh was brief and humorless. He's exactly what he appears to be, a man who built an empire by never backing down and never showing weakness. He thinks sentiment is a luxury we can't afford. And what do you think? I think sentiment might be the only thing that makes any of this worth doing. Before Clara could respond, Vivian appeared dressed in her finest day dress, her hair carefully styled. She smiled at Colton with practiced grace. Mr. Mercer, how lovely to see you again. Father mentioned you might be joining us for lunch. That's kind of you, Miss Hale, but I'm afraid... Oh, but we insist. Vivian's smile widened. Clara's told me so much about your conversation yesterday. I'd love to hear more about your plans for expanding the Mercer holdings. Clara watched her sister work, saw the way Vivian angled herself to catch the light, the way she laughed at things that weren't funny, the way she casually mentioned her accomplishments in running the household. It was a performance Clara had seen 100 times before, but never directed at someone she'd thought of as hers. Except Colton wasn't hers. They'd barely met. They'd made a deal, nothing more. Actually, Colton said, his tone polite but firm, I was hoping Clara might show me more of the ranch. Your father mentioned some water access issues that need addressing. Vivian's smile faltered slightly. Oh, well, I'm sure Clara would be happy to. I would, Clara cut in, enjoying her sister's discomfort more than she should. If you'll excuse us, Vivian. They walked toward the eastern pastures, where the creek ran shallow and unreliable. Clara could feel Vivian's eyes boring into her back, could imagine the fury building behind that perfect facade. "Your sister doesn't like me much," Colton observed. "My sister doesn't like that you're interested in me instead of her." Clara kicked at a loose stone. "She's been groomed her whole life to marry well, to be the perfect society wife. I'm the wild one, the embarrassment. This was supposed to be her chance. And instead our fathers decided you were the better match. Lucky me." They reached the creek bed, and Clara knelt to examine the water flow. "It's getting worse every year. Used to run strong through summer. Now it barely trickles by August." Colton crouched beside her, studying the terrain with a practiced eye. "The Mercer Ranch has senior water rights upstream. We've been diverting more flow to irrigate the new pastures." "So you're stealing our water?" "Legally, yes." He met her eyes. "But morally, that's more complicated." "How very honest of you. You said you wanted honesty." He stood, offering his hand to help her up. She took it, surprised again by the strength in his grip. "This is part of why our fathers want this marriage, Clara. If the Hale and Mercer ranches merge, the water rights issue resolves itself. Everything resolved by making me a Mercer. Or making me a Hale." The suggestion hung in the air between them. "I never said I needed you to take my name. We could run both ranches, keep both names, build something bigger than what either family has alone." Clara stared at him, trying to understand if he was serious. "Your father would never allow that. My father doesn't get to decide my entire life." There was steel in Colton's voice now. "He can push, he can threaten, but at the end of the day, I'm the one who has to live with my choices." "Pretty words," Clara said. "But words don't change reality. Men like your father don't give up power easily." "No," Colton agreed. "They don't. Which is why I'll need someone strong beside me when I take it from him." The implication settled over Clara like a thunderclap. He wasn't just talking about marriage. He was talking about revolution, about changing the entire structure of how these ranches operated. It was ambitious. It was dangerous. It was exactly the kind of impossible dream Clara had stopped letting herself have years ago. "You're either brilliant or insane," she said finally. "Can't it be both?" This time when she laughed, it felt less like surprise and more like possibility. Maybe this could be more than just another cage with prettier bars. Maybe it could be the key to breaking free entirely. But trust, Clara reminded herself, had to be earned. And Colton Mercer had a long way to go before she'd bet her future on his promises, no matter how appealing they sounded in the Montana sunlight. Over the next 2 weeks, Colton came to the Hale Ranch every day. And every day, Clara found herself trusting him a little more, which terrified her more than she wanted to admit. They rode together, worked together, talked about everything from water management to the future of ranching in Montana. He never tried to kiss her, never pushed for more than she was willing to give, and somehow that restraint made her want him more. But Vivian's resentment grew with each passing day. "You think you're so special?" Vivian hissed one morning as they worked in the kitchen, kneading bread dough with angry efficiency. "You think he actually cares about you and not what this marriage can do for his empire?" "I think he's honest," Clara replied, refusing to rise to the bait. "Honest?" Vivian's laugh was cruel. "Men are never honest, Clara. They tell you what you want to hear until they get what they want. Then you see who they really are." Speaking from experience, Vivian's hands stilled on the dough. "You don't know anything about my experiences." Something in her sister's voice made Clara look up sharply. Vivian's face had gone pale, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Vivian, what?" "Forget it." Vivian turned away, wiping her hands on her apron with jerky movements. "Just don't come crying to me when Colton Mercer shows you his true colors." Before Clara could press further, Edmund burst into the kitchen, waving a letter like a battle flag. "It's done. Victor Mercer's agreed to the terms. You'll marry Colton in 6 weeks, Clara. 6 weeks, and this family is saved." Clara's stomach dropped. "We haven't agreed to anything." "I've agreed," Edmund snapped. "I'm your father, and I'm telling you, this is happening." "No." Clara stripped off her apron, her hands shaking with fury. "You can't just decide my life for me. I can, and I have. The contracts are signed. The announcement will be in the paper tomorrow." "Then unannounce it." Edmund grabbed her arm, his fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. "You selfish little brat. Do you have any idea what's at stake here? The bank is threatening foreclosure. We're 2 months from losing everything. This marriage is the only thing keeping us from the poorhouse." Clara wrenched her arm free. "Then you should have asked me instead of selling me like cattle. You ungrateful—" "Let her go." Vivian's voice cut through the argument, quiet but firm. "She said no, father." Edmund stared at his older daughter in disbelief. "You're taking her side?" "I'm saying you can't force her." Vivian's voice wavered but held. "No matter how desperate we are." For a moment Clara thought her father might hit them both. His face went red, his jaw working soundlessly. Then he threw the letter on the table and stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Clara turned to Vivian, stunned. "Why did you—" "Don't." Vivian's composure cracked. "Don't make this into something it's not. I still think you're a fool, but I won't watch father beat you into submission. Even I have limits." Clara reached for her sister's hand, but Vivian pulled away, leaving Clara alone in the kitchen, with her father's ultimatum hanging in the air like gunsmoke. She found Colton an hour later at the creek inspecting the water flow with a surveyor's tool. He looked up when she approached, and his smile faded when he saw her face. "What happened?" "Your father and mine signed contracts, announced our engagement without asking either of us first." Colton's expression went dark. "When?" "This morning, apparently. We're supposed to marry in 6 weeks." He swore low and vicious. "I told my father I wanted time. I told him we were doing this our way." "Well, apparently our fathers decided their way was better." Clara's voice broke despite her best efforts. "I can't do this, Colton. I can't be forced into a cage, even a pretty one." "Then we won't." He caught her hands, his grip warm and steady. "Listen to me. We have options." "What options?" "They've already announced it. If we back out now, we don't back out, we take control." His eyes burned with intensity. "You want to choose your own path? Then choose. Choose me, not because your father demands it, but because you want to. Choose us building something real together." "You make it sound simple." "It is simple. It's our fathers making it complicated." He pulled her closer. "Clara, these past 2 weeks, getting to know you, seeing how strong you are, how real, I'm not asking you to marry me because our fathers want it. I'm asking because I want it. Because I think we could be incredible together." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "You barely know me. I know you're brave enough to stand up to your father. I know you work harder than anyone I've ever met. I know you'd rather starve free than live comfortable in chains. That's enough for me." He paused. "Is it enough for you?" Clara wanted to say yes, wanted to throw caution away and jump into this with both feet. But years of disappointment had taught her to be careful with hope. "I need to think," she said. "Then think." He released her hands but didn't step back. "But while you're thinking, know this, I'm going to fight my father on this. I'm going to tell him we do this our way or not at all. And if you decide you want me, I'll be here. If you decide you don't, I'll stand beside you and we'll face our fathers together." "Why?" The question burst out of her. "Why are you willing to risk everything for someone you barely know?" Colton's smile was sad and knowing. "Because I've spent my whole life doing what my father wanted, building what he told me to build, being who he needed me to be. And I'm tired, Clara. I'm tired of living someone else's life. When I'm with you, I remember what it feels like to want something for myself." Before she could respond, hoofbeats thundered in the distance. They both turned to see Victor Mercer riding hard toward them, his face like a thunderstorm. "Get away from her!" Victor barked at his son. "We need to talk. Now! Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of Clara." "The hell I will." Victor dismounted, his boots hitting the ground with authority. "This is family business." "She's about to be family," Colton shot back. Not if you keep sabotaging this arrangement. Victor's eyes narrowed. Edmund tells me you've been filling her head with nonsense about equal partnerships and shared decision-making. I've been telling her the truth about what I want our marriage to be. What you want? Victor's laugh was harsh. Boy, what you want doesn't matter. This merger is about securing water rights, expanding our holdings, and ensuring the Mercer name dominates this territory for generations. It's not about love or partnership or whatever romantic garbage you've been spouting. Clara watched Colton's jaw tighten, saw the muscle jumping in his cheek. I'm not marrying her just to expand your empire. Then you're a fool. Victor turned his attention to Clara, his gaze calculating. And you, girl. You think you're special, because my son's taken a shine to you. You're a means to an end, nothing more. Sign the papers, smile for the ceremony, produce heirs and stay out of the way. That's all that's required of you. No. Clara's voice came out steady, despite the rage boiling in her chest. That's not all I'm worth, and I won't pretend it is. Victor's eyebrows rose. You don't have a choice. Your father's signed the contracts. This marriage is happening whether you like it or not. Actually, Colton said quietly, she does have a choice. We both do. Those contracts aren't valid without our consent. We're both over 21. We can refuse. Refuse and watch your precious girl's family lose everything. Victor's smile was cruel. I'll call in Edmund's loans personally. The bank will foreclose within a month. The Hale family will be destitute, and it'll be because you were too proud to do your duty. The threat hung in the air like poison. Clara felt it wrap around her throat, choking off her breath. This was the trap she'd feared all along. Not bars and locks, but debt and desperation, family obligation, weaponized against her own desires. You're a bastard. Colton said, his voice low and dangerous. I'm a businessman. Victor mounted his horse again. You have until tomorrow to convince her to sign the papers willingly. After that, I'll make Edmund force her. Either way, this marriage happens in 6 weeks. He rode off, leaving them both standing in the devastation of his ultimatum. I'm sorry, Colton said after a long silence. I thought I could protect you from this. I thought if we stood together. It's not your fault. Clara's voice sounded hollow even to her own ears. Men like your father always win. They own everything, control everything. People like me are just pieces on their game board. No. Colton grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. Don't let him break you. Don't let him make you believe you're powerless. I am powerless. The words exploded out of her. My father's drowning in debt. My family's about to lose everything, and the only way to save them is to marry you. Where's the power in that? The power is in choosing how you do it. His grip tightened. Yes, we have to marry, but we don't have to do it their way. We can still build what we talked about, a real partnership, a real future. We just have to be smarter than they are. And how do we do that? Colton's smile was sharp and dangerous. We give them exactly what they think they want while building what we actually want underneath. My father wants a merger, fine. We'll merge the ranches. But we'll do it on our terms with contracts that protect your rights, that give you real power and authority. He wants heirs. We'll provide them. But they'll be raised to value justice and fairness, not just profit and power. You make it sound like we can win. We can, but only if you're willing to fight for it. Only if you're willing to take the risk. He released her shoulders, stepped back. So what's it going to be? Clara, do you sign those papers and spend the rest of your life resenting me? Or do you marry me and we wage war together against everyone who thinks they can control us? Clara looked at him, really looked at him. Saw the determination in his eyes, the steel in his spine, the genuine offer of partnership written across his face. He was offering her something she'd never had before, an ally. Someone who'd stand beside her instead of in front of her, or behind her. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was respect, and respect was rarer than love in her experience. I want legal protections, she said. Real ones. I want my name on the ranch title's equal authority in all business decisions, and a clause that says if this marriage fails, I keep my share. Colton's grin was fierce and approving. Done. What else? I want Vivian taken care of. Whatever happens with us, my sister doesn't suffer for it. Agreed. And I want your promise. Her voice caught. I want your promise that you won't try to change me, won't try to make me softer or quieter or more acceptable. Clara. He said her name like a prayer. I don't want you softer. I want you exactly as you are, sharp edges, blunt words and all. That's what I'm signing up for. She believed him. God help her, she actually believed him. Then I'll sign your papers, she said. But this is a business arrangement that might become something more, not the other way around. Fair enough. He extended his hand. Partners. Partners. She shook it, feeling the calluses on his palm, the strength in his grip. Now let's go tell our fathers they're not as smart as they think they are. The walk back to the ranch felt different this time. Lighter somehow, despite the weight of what they'd just agreed to. Clara had spent her whole life feeling trapped, but this trap had an escape hatch built in. This cage had a key she'd helped forge. They found both fathers in Edmund's study, already celebrating with whiskey and cigars. Victor's expression shifted from triumph to suspicion when he saw them enter together. We'll do it, Colton announced. But we have conditions. Edmund's relief was palpable. Condition, son, you're not in a position to... We're in every position. Clara cut him off. You need this merger more than we do, which means you'll agree to our terms or watch your deal fall apart. Victor stood slowly. What terms? Clara gets equal ownership of the combined ranch holdings. 50-50 split legally documented. She gets equal say in all business decisions. If the marriage fails, she keeps her share. Colton's voice was calm and immovable. And Vivian Hale receives a dowry of $10,000 to ensure her future is secure, regardless of what happens with our family. Edmund went pale. That's insane. You can't. We can, Clara said. And we will. Those are the terms. Accept them or call off the wedding. Victor's eyes narrowed dangerously. You think you can dictate terms to me, boy? I think you taught me well, father. You always said never make a deal unless you're willing to walk away from it. Well, I'm willing to walk. Are you? The silence stretched taut as a bowstring. Clara could see Victor calculating, weighing his options, trying to find an angle. But Colton had boxed him in perfectly. Walk away, and lose the water rights and land expansion, or accept the terms, and watch his son take a measure of real power. Fine, Victor finally growled. But I want it in writing, that any heirs inherit the Mercer name, not the Hale name. Agreed, Colton said. Anything else? Yes. Victor's smile was cold. If you think these legal papers will protect you from reality, you're more naive than I thought. Marriage is about power, and power isn't found in contracts. It's taken and held through strength. Your little equal partnership fantasy will crumble the first time you face real hardship. Then I guess we'll find out, Clara said, meeting his gaze without flinching. Victor left without another word, and Edmund slumped in his chair, looking older than Clara had ever seen him. I hope you know what you're doing, he said quietly. So do I, Clara replied. But at least I'll be doing it on my own terms. That night she found Vivian in their shared bedroom, sitting by the window and staring out at the dark landscape. Clara sat beside her, uncertain how to bridge the gap that had grown between them. Thank you, Clara said finally, for standing up to Father earlier. I didn't do it for you. Vivian's voice was flat. I did it because watching him try to force you reminded me of... She trailed off, shaking her head. Reminded you of what? Vivian was quiet for so long Clara thought she wouldn't answer. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, There was a man, 2 years ago. Father thought he'd be perfect for me, wealthy, connected, respectable. He courted me properly, said all the right things. Father was thrilled. Clara's stomach nodded. What happened? I said yes, because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. thought that's what love was, someone father approved of, someone who fit the right boxes. Vivian's hands twisted in her lap. But after we were engaged, he changed. Started telling me what to wear, who I could talk to, how I should behave. And when I pushed back, her voice broke. He hit me. Said it was my fault for making him angry. Rage flooded Clara's chest. Who was he? Tell me his name. It doesn't matter. Father broke the engagement when the bruises became too obvious to hide. Paid him off to keep quiet to protect our reputation. Vivian finally looked at Clara, her eyes hollow. So when I watch you fight against this marriage, part of me is jealous. Because you still have the strength to fight. I gave mine up a long time ago. Clara grabbed her sister's hand. You haven't given up anything. You stood up for me today. That took strength. Did it? Or was I just too cowardly to watch history repeat itself? Vivian pulled her hand away. Colton seems different. Genuinely different. But so did Thomas at first. Men are good at seeming safe until they're not. Then I'll be careful, Clara promised. And if he ever tries what Thomas did, I'll make sure he regrets it. Vivian's smile was sad. Just be careful, Clara. Love makes us stupid. Makes us believe things that aren't true. I'm not in love with him. Not yet. But you will be. I see the way you look at him. And when that happens, you'll be vulnerable in ways you can't imagine. Clara wanted to argue, wanted to insist she'd never be that foolish. But looking at her sister's haunted eyes, she understood the warning for what it was, not jealousy or spite, but genuine fear born from painful experience. I'll be careful, she said again, I promise. But as she lay in bed that night, Clara wondered if careful was enough. She'd agreed to marry Colton Mercer. In 6 weeks, she'd stand before a preacher and bind her life to his. And despite all their talk of partnerships and equal terms, the truth remained. She was still betting her future on a man she barely knew, hoping he was different from every other man who'd promised one thing and delivered another. The only question was whether that hope would save her or destroy her. The lawyers arrived 3 days later carrying documents so dense with legal language Clara's head spun trying to read them. But Colton sat beside her at Edmund's dining table and translated every clause, every provision, making sure she understood exactly what she was signing. This section gives you veto power over any land sales, he explained, pointing to a paragraph halfway down page 7. And this one ensures you receive equal financial reports monthly. Victor sat across from them, his face like carved stone. This is unnecessary. She doesn't need to understand every detail. Yes, she does, Colton said without looking up. Because these are her rights we're documenting, and I won't have her sign anything she doesn't fully comprehend. Edmund shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Clara's not a businesswoman. These matters are too complex. Then she'll learn, Colton interrupted. She's got a sharper mind than half the men I do business with. She'll figure it out. Clara felt something warm bloom in her chest at his words. Not love, not yet, but something close to it. Respect that felt genuine, not performed for an audience. They signed the papers as the sun set, and with each signature, Clara felt the weight of her decision settle deeper into her bones. There was no backing out now. In 5 weeks, she'd become Mrs. Colton Mercer, for better or worse. I need air, she said when the lawyers finally left her hand cramping from signing so many documents. Colton followed her outside without asking permission. They walked in silence until they reached the barn, where the familiar smell of hay and horses offered comfort Clara desperately needed. Having second thoughts? Colton asked. Third and fourth thoughts, too. She leaned against a stall door. This is insane, you know. We barely know each other. I know you take your coffee black and hate small talk. I know you'd rather muck stalls than attend a tea party. I know you cry when you think no one's watching, and you're terrified of being trapped. He moved closer. That's more than my parents knew about each other when they married. Your parents tolerate each other. They don't love each other. No, they don't. His honesty was brutal and refreshing. But we have a chance to be different, if we're brave enough to try. Before Clara could respond, Vivian's scream shattered the quiet. They both ran toward the house, finding Vivian in the parlor, a letter crumpled in her shaking hands, her face drained of all color. What happened? Clara grabbed her sister's shoulders. "Vivian, what is it?" "He's coming," Vivian whispered. "Thomas, he's coming to the wedding." Clara's blood turned to ice. "Why would he? Father invited him." Vivian's voice broke on a sob. "I heard them talking. Father thinks having Thomas attend will show everyone we harbor no ill will, that the broken engagement was mutual and friendly. He doesn't know what Thomas did. Doesn't know what he—" She couldn't finish, just stood there shaking like a leaf in a storm. Colton took the letter from Vivian's hands, read it quickly. "Thomas Wardell. I know him. His family owns silver mines up north." "Did you know about the engagement?" Clara demanded. "I heard rumors it ended badly, but not why." Colton's jaw tightened. "What did he do to you, Vivian?" Vivian shook her head, unable to speak. Clara answered for her. "He beat her. When she tried to leave, he got worse. Father paid him off to go away quietly." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Colton's expression went flat and dangerous. How badly did he hurt her? Badly enough she couldn't leave her room for 2 weeks. Badly enough she's still terrified. Clara's own anger was rising hot and fierce. And now Father's invited him to our wedding like he's some honored guest. Not for long. Colton headed for the door. "Where are you going?" "To uninvite him." Clara caught his arm. "You can't. Father will ask questions and Vivian doesn't want anyone knowing." "I don't care what your father wants." Colton's voice was steel wrapped in ice. "That man's not coming anywhere near either of you." He found Edmund in the study, already deep into his evening whiskey. "Thomas Wardell isn't welcome at the wedding." Edmund looked up annoyed. "That's not your decision to make?" "Actually it is. It's my wedding, my guest list, and I say he doesn't attend. Thomas Wardell is from a prominent family. Having him there shows unity, shows we've moved past that unfortunate business with Vivian. That unfortunate business was him beating your daughter." Colton's words hit like bullets. "Or did you think I wouldn't find out?" Edmund's face went red. "That's a private family matter. It stopped being private when you invited him to an event where Vivian will be present." "She's terrified, Edmund. Shaking in the parlor because you're too concerned with appearances to protect your own child. I paid him good money to leave her alone. Money doesn't erase trauma." Colton leaned forward, his voice dropping to something deadly quiet. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to write Thomas Wardell a letter explaining he's no longer welcome. You're going to cite scheduling conflicts or whatever excuse protects Vivian's privacy. And you're going to do it tonight." "You can't tell me what to do in my own home." "No, but I can cancel this wedding. I can tear up those contracts and watch your ranch go under. Is that what you want?" The threat hung between them like a drawn blade. Edmund's hands shook as he poured another whiskey. "You'd really throw all this away over Thomas Wardell?" "I'd throw it away in a heartbeat to protect Clara and Vivian from a man who thinks his money entitles him to hurt women." Colton straightened. "So, what's it going to be?" Edmund stared at him for a long moment, then pulled out paper and pen. "Fine. I'll write the letter. But this better not come back to haunt us. The only thing haunting you should be how you failed to protect Vivian in the first place." Colton returned to find Clara and Vivian still in the parlor. Vivian had stopped crying but looked fragile, like she might shatter at a harsh word. "He's not coming," Colton said simply. "Your father's writing the letter now." Vivian looked up at him, disbelief written across her face. "How did you—" "I told him the truth, that Thomas hurt you, and I won't have him at my wedding." He sat down across from them. "And Vivian, if he ever comes near you again, you tell me, immediately. Understood?" Vivian nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks again. But this time they looked different. Lighter somehow, like relief instead of fear. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me for doing what your father should have done a long time ago." After Vivian went to bed, Clara walked Colton out to his horse. The night air was cool, stars scattered across the sky like diamonds on black velvet. "You didn't have to do that," Clara said. "Yes, I did." Colton checked his saddle straps. "I meant what I said about partnership, Clara. That includes your sister. She's family now, too." "We're not married yet," Doesn't matter. You agreed to this, which means everyone you care about is my responsibility too. He paused. Besides, men like Thomas Wardell need to learn they can't hurt women and walk away unscathed. Clara studied him in the moonlight, seeing something she hadn't seen before. Not just strength, but the kind of integrity that couldn't be faked or performed. It existed in him like bedrock, fundamental and unshakable. "I'm starting to believe you might actually be one of the good ones," she said quietly. "Don't put me on a pedestal, Clara. I'm not perfect. I've got a temper, I'm stubborn as hell, and I don't always think before I act." He swung up into the saddle. "But I'll always try to do right by you and yours. That's the best promise I can make. It's enough." He smiled, and for the first time it reached his eyes. "Good. I'll see you tomorrow." Tomorrow. She watched him ride away, feeling something shift inside her chest. Maybe Vivian was right. Maybe love did make you stupid, made you believe impossible things. But standing there in the cool Montana night, Clara thought maybe stupid wasn't the worst thing she could be. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of wedding preparations, ranch work, and stolen moments with Colton. They fell into an easy rhythm, working side by side during the day, talking late into the evenings about their plans for the combined ranches. He valued her opinions, asked her advice, treated her like an equal partner instead of a pretty accessory. But Victor Mercer watched it all with calculating eyes, and Clara could feel his disapproval like a physical weight. "You're making a mistake," Victor told Colton one afternoon when Clara was within earshot. "Getting too attached. This is a business arrangement, not a love match." "Maybe it's both," Colton replied. "Love makes men weak, makes them compromise when they should stand firm. Or maybe it makes them stronger, gives them something worth fighting for besides money and power." Victor's laugh was harsh. "You'll learn. Women are useful for heirs and managing households. Anything beyond that is sentiment you can't afford." Clara bit her tongue to keep from responding, but Colton saw her expression and steered his father away before she could say something that would cause real damage. 2 weeks before the wedding, a stranger rode onto the Hale property asking for Edmund. He was tall, thin, dressed like a banker, but carrying himself like a gunfighter. Something about him set Clara's teeth on edge. She found out why that evening when Edmund called her into his study. "This is Mr. Harrison," Edmund said, gesturing to the stranger. "He's here on behalf of certain creditors who are concerned about the wedding timeline." "What do you mean concerned?" Clara demanded. Harrison smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Your father owes considerable money to several parties. They've been patient, but patience has limits. We need assurance this wedding will happen as scheduled." "It will," Clara said. "The date's set, the contracts are signed. Contracts can be broken, weddings can be canceled." Harrison pulled out a folded document. "Your father's creditors want insurance. If this wedding doesn't happen, they'll call in all his debts immediately. The ranch will be sold at auction within a month." Clara's stomach dropped. "That's not legal. Those debts aren't due yet. Read the fine print, Miss Hale. Your father signed agreements with acceleration clauses. If certain conditions aren't met, the full amounts become due immediately." Harrison's smile widened. "And one of those conditions is this marriage proceeding as planned." "You bastard," Clara breathed, turning on her father. "You tied the debts to my wedding without telling me." Edmund wouldn't meet her eyes. "I needed leverage to keep them from foreclosing early. This was the only way. The only way you turned my marriage into collateral." "It's just a formality," Edmund said desperately. "The wedding's happening anyway, so it doesn't matter." "It matters because now I can't back out even if I want to." Clara's voice rose to a shout. "You didn't just sell me, you chained me to this with legal bonds I can't break." Harrison stood smoothly. "I'll leave you two to discuss this. But Miss Hale, understand, if you don't marry Colton Mercer in 2 weeks, your family loses everything. Your father goes to debtor's prison. Your sister ends up in the poorhouse. All because you decided your pride was more important than their survival." He left, and Clara stood there, shaking with rage and betrayal so complete she couldn't speak. "Clara, please," Edmund started. "Get out. You have to understand I was desperate." "Get out." She grabbed the whiskey bottle off his desk and threw it at the wall glass, exploding in a shower of amber liquid. "Get out before I do something we'll both regret." Edmund fled, and Clara, she'd thought she was making a choice. Thought she was taking control of her own destiny. But it had all been an illusion. She was trapped just as thoroughly as if they'd locked her in a cell. She didn't know how long she sat there before Colton found her. He took one look at her face and closed the door behind him. "What happened?" She told him everything, the words spilling out in angry bursts. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Say something," Clara demanded. "I'm trying to figure out if killing your father would solve anything or just create more problems." Despite everything, she almost laughed. "Probably more problems. Probably." He pulled up a chair across from her. "Clara, look at me." She did, and saw her own fury reflected in his eyes. "This doesn't change anything," he said. "You're still in control." "How I can't back out without destroying my family." "You could never back out without destroying your family. These debts existed before Harrison showed up. All he did was make explicit what was already true." Colton leaned forward. "But here's what else is true. We've spent the last month building something real. The legal pressure doesn't erase that. Doesn't make our partnership any less genuine. How do I know this wasn't all part of the plan, you and your father working together to trap me?" The hurt that flashed across his face told her she'd struck deep. "Because I didn't know about those clauses any more than you did. Because I've been fighting my father every step of this process to make sure you have real power, real protection." His voice hardened. "And because if I wanted to trap you, I sure as hell wouldn't have spent the last month showing you exactly who I am and what I believe." Clara wanted to believe him. Wanted to trust that this anger in his eyes was genuine, that his support wasn't calculated. But Vivian's warning echoed in her head. Men are good at seeming safe, until they're not. "I need time," she said. "I need to think." "Then think. But Clara, don't let your father's betrayal poison what we're building. He's the one who lied, not me." After he left, Clara sat alone in the growing darkness, trying to separate her anger at Edmund from her feelings about Colton. But it all tangled together into one massive knot of hurt and confusion and bone-deep weariness. She found Vivian in their room reading by candlelight. "I heard the shouting," Vivian said quietly. "Father told me about Harrison's visit." "Did you know?" Clara demanded. "About the clauses?" "No, but I'm not surprised." Vivian set down her book. "Father's been desperate for months. Men do terrible things when they're desperate. So I'm supposed to just accept it, marry Colton, knowing I'm being forced." "You were always being forced, Clara. The only difference now is you can't pretend otherwise." Vivian's voice was gentle but firm. "But here's what I've been watching these past weeks. You and Colton actually like each other. You work well together. He respects you in a way I've never seen a man respect a woman before. That doesn't change the fact I have no choice." "No, it doesn't. But it means the cage you're walking into might have better bars than the one you're leaving." Vivian came to sit beside her. "I told you to be careful because I didn't want you hurt like I was hurt. But watching you with Colton, I don't see Thomas. I see a man who genuinely wants you as a partner. And if I'm wrong, if he changes after the wedding, then you use those legal protections he insisted on and you leave. You're not helpless, Clara, not anymore." Clara wanted to argue, but exhaustion won. She was tired of fighting, tired of being angry, tired of feeling like every choice was really no choice at all. The next morning she rode to the Mercer Ranch alone, not telling anyone where she was going. Colton met her in the yard, surprise and concern warring on his face. "I need to know something," Clara said without preamble. "And I need you to be completely honest. Always. Did your father know about those debt clauses?" Colton's jaw tightened. "I asked him that last night. He claims he didn't, but I'm not sure I believe him. Victor's capable of a lot when it serves his interests. And if he did know, if this was all orchestrated to trap me, then he's more of a bastard than I thought, and I'll make sure he regrets it." Colton moved closer. "But Clara, even if he knew I didn't, This thing between us, this partnership we're building, that's real. That's not manipulation or strategy. That's just you and me trying to make something good out of a bad situation." Clara studied his face, looking for any hint of deception. But all she saw was the same honesty he'd shown her from the beginning, the same integrity that had made her start to trust him in the first place. "2 weeks," she said. "We have 2 weeks until the wedding, and I need to know I'm making the right choice. Not the only choice, but the right one." "Then let me prove it to you." He held out his hand. "Come with me." She took his hand, and he led her to a section of the Mercer Ranch she'd never seen before, where the land opened up into rolling pasture that stretched toward the mountains. They stopped at a partially constructed building, its frame rising against the sky like a promise half made. "What is this?" Clara asked. "Our house." Colton released her hand, gesturing to the structure. "I started building it 3 weeks ago. Didn't tell anyone because I wanted it to be ours, not my father's or yours. A place where we make the rules, where we decide how we live." Clara walked through the frame, seeing where rooms would be, where windows would look out over the land. "You're building this for us. I'm building this for you. So you never feel trapped in my father's house under his thumb. So you have space that belongs to you." He followed her inside. "I know you think you have no choice in this marriage, but you have choices in everything that comes after, including where we live and how we build our life." Something cracked open in Clara's chest, something she'd been holding closed and protected. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I'm tired of living my father's version of my life. Because when I'm with you, I remember what it feels like to want something for myself." He moved closer. "And because you deserve better than being forced into a marriage with a man who sees you as property." "I barely know you." "Then let me change that." He gestured around the unfinished house. "Tell me what you want. What would make this place feel like home instead of a cage?" Clara looked at the empty space, trying to imagine filling it with a life she'd actually want to live. "A library. Somewhere I can read without being told it's unladylike or wasteful." "Done. What else?" "A real kitchen. Not some cramped corner where women are expected to hide, but a real workspace with good light and room to breathe." "I'll make sure the builder knows." Colton pulled out a small notebook and pencil. "Keep going." For the next hour, they walked through the skeletal house together, Clara describing what she wanted and Colton writing it all down. It felt strange being asked her opinion, having someone actually listen to what she needed instead of telling her what she should want. When they finished, she felt lighter somehow, less trapped. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Don't thank me yet. We still have to survive the next 2 weeks and my father's scheming." Colton's expression darkened. "He's not happy about the legal protections we negotiated. He'll try to undermine them somehow." "How?" "I don't know yet, but Victor Mercer doesn't lose gracefully. He'll find an angle." They rode back together, and Clara felt something shift between them. Not love, not yet, but the foundation it could grow from. Trust slowly being earned through actions instead of words. But that fragile trust shattered 3 days later when Edmund collapsed in the barn, clutching his chest and gasping for air. Clara found him there, his face gray and sweating terror in his eyes. "Get help," he wheezed. "Can't breathe." Clara ran for the house, screaming for Vivian, her heart hammering against her ribs. They sent a ranch hand for the doctor, while Clara knelt beside her father, holding his hand and trying to keep him conscious. "Don't you dare die," she hissed. "Don't you dare leave me to clean up your mess." Edmund's grip on her hand was weak but desperate. "I'm sorry. For all of it. I just wanted to save us. By selling me. By doing the only thing I could think of." His breathing came in short, painful gasps. "Your mother would be ashamed of me." "Yes, she would." The doctor arrived within the hour, examined Edmund, and delivered his verdict with grim efficiency. "His heart's failing. Could be days, could be months. He needs rest, no stress, and someone to watch over him constantly." "Will he live?" Vivian's voice shook. "If he's careful. If he follows orders. If he's lucky." The doctor packed his bag. But he can't run this ranch anymore. The strain will kill him. After the doctor left, Clara and Vivian stood in the hallway outside their father's room, the weight of this new reality pressing down on both of them. "What do we do?" Vivian whispered. "We survive. Same as always." But Clara's voice lacked conviction. With Edmund incapacitated, the ranch had no one to manage it. The hands would need direction, decisions would need making, and the creditors wouldn't care that the man who owed them money was dying. Colton arrived within hours of hearing the news, his face tight with concern. "How is he?" "Alive barely." Clara felt numb, hollowed out. "The doctor says he can't work anymore." "Then I'll handle the ranch operations until we're married. After that, we'll manage both properties together." He said it like it was simple, like taking on 2 ranches was just another task to check off a list. "Why would you do that? He's not your responsibility." "No, but you are. And you're drowning Clara. Let me help." She wanted to refuse, wanted to prove she could handle this alone, but pride was a luxury she couldn't afford anymore. "Fine, but I work beside you. I'm not some helpless woman who needs rescuing." "I never thought you were." They spent the next week running both ranches, and Clara discovered just how deep her father's debts ran. Every ledger she opened revealed another loan, another creditor, another financial hole. Edmund had tried to patch with borrowed money. "This is worse than I thought," Colton said one night as they reviewed the accounts in Edmund's study. "He owes nearly $50,000 across 6 different creditors." Clara's stomach turned. "That's impossible. The ranch isn't worth half that." Which is why those debt clauses exist. The creditors knew they'd never see their full money if your father defaulted, so they tied repayment to assets they could actually collect, like a marriage merger with the Mercer Empire. "So I really am just collateral." To them, yes. To me, no. Colton closed the ledger. "But Clara, you need to understand something. Even with our marriage, even with the combined ranch holdings, it's going to take years to pay off these debts. We'll be operating on thin margins, making hard choices about what we can afford and what we can't." "Are you trying to scare me off?" "I'm trying to be honest about what we're walking into." He met her eyes. "This isn't going to be easy. My father's going to fight us on every decision. The creditors will be breathing down our necks, and we'll be starting our marriage already under crushing financial pressure. If you want out, now's the time to say so." Clara thought about it, really thought about it. She could walk away, let her father's ranch fail, let Edmund face the consequences of his own choices. But that would also destroy Vivian, would leave her sister with nothing and nowhere to go. "I'm not backing out," she said. "But I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you won't hide things from me the way my father did. If we're in this together, I need to know the truth even when it's ugly. I promise." He extended his hand across the desk. "Partners for real this time." "Partners." They shook on it, and Clara felt the weight of that promise settle into her bones. This was happening. In less than a week, she'd marry Colton Mercer, and everything would change. But Victor Mercer had other plans. He arrived the next morning with his own lawyers carrying documents that made Clara's blood run cold. "What's this?" Colton demanded, scanning the papers his father had thrust at him. "An amendment to the marriage contracts," Victor said smoothly. "Given Edmund's incapacitation, we need to ensure proper management of the combined holdings. These documents establish that I'll maintain operational control until such time as you prove yourself capable of handling both ranches." "Absolutely not." Colton threw the papers back at his father. "We already agreed to the terms. You can't change them now. I can if Edmund's condition makes him unable to fulfill his obligations. The original contracts assumed he'd remain an active partner in ranch management. Since he can't, we need new terms." Clara grabbed the documents, reading through them with growing horror. "These give you complete control. They reduce me to nothing more than a wife with no actual authority." "They protect the investment I'm making in your failing ranch," Victor corrected. "Without my intervention, you'd lose everything. We'll take our chances." Clara's voice was ice. "No, you won't." Victor's smile was cruel. "Because I've already spoken with the creditors. They've agreed to accept these new terms in exchange for extended payment schedules. Refuse and they'll demand immediate repayment of all debts. You'll be foreclosed within a month." Colton stepped between his father and Clara, his body vibrating with barely controlled rage. "You're blackmailing us." "I'm conducting business. There's a difference. Get out." Victor's eyebrows rose. "Excuse me? Get out of this house before I throw you out." Colton's voice dropped to something deadly. "And understand this, if you try to force those terms on us, I'll walk away from everything. The ranch, the merger, the Mercer name, all of it. I'll leave you to manage your empire alone and watch it crumble without an heir." "You're bluffing. Try me." Colton's jaw was set like granite. "I've spent my whole life building what you told me to build, being who you needed me to be. But I'm done. Clara and I are doing this our way, with the terms we already agreed to. Accept it, or lose your son." Father and son stared at each other, and Clara could see the moment Victor realized Colton wasn't backing down. The older man's face went red, then pale fury and calculation warring in his eyes. "You'd throw away everything I've built for this girl." "In a heartbeat." Victor gathered his papers with sharp, angry movements. "You're making a mistake. She'll ruin you, drag you down to her level, and when it all falls apart, don't come crying to me for help." "I wouldn't dream of it." After Victor left, Colton sagged against the desk, the fight draining out of him. Clara moved to his side, uncertain what to say. "I'm sorry," she finally managed. "I didn't mean to cause a rift between you and your father." "You didn't cause anything. This has been building for years." He rubbed his face tiredly. "Victor thinks power is everything, that money and control are the only things worth having. He doesn't understand that I'd rather have one honest partnership than a dozen manipulated alliances. He'll keep trying to undermine us. Let him try. We've got the legal contracts, we've got each other, and we've got something he'll never understand. We actually want this to work." Colton straightened. "Come on. We've got 4 days until the wedding, and I want to show you something." He led her back to the unfinished house where workers were now actively building raising walls and setting windows. The progress stunned Clara. In just over a week, the skeletal frame had become something recognizable as a home. "How did you—" "I paid them triple to work fast. Wanted to have it mostly finished before the wedding." He walked her through the rooms, pointing out details he'd added based on their earlier conversation. The library with floor-to-ceiling shelves, the spacious kitchen with big windows facing east for morning light, the bedroom with its own fireplace and reading nook. "It's beautiful," Clara whispered. "It's ours. Not my father's, not yours. Just ours." He turned to face her. "In 4 days we're getting married. And yeah, we're doing it because of debts and pressure and family obligations, but we're also doing it because we choose to, because we think we can build something real together." Clara looked at him. Really looked at him. Saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the determination in his jaw, the genuine care in how he'd built this house to her specifications instead of his. Vivian had warned her that men were good at seeming safe until they weren't, but Colton kept proving himself over and over again. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Terrified that I'm making a mistake, that this will all fall apart and I'll end up trapped anyway." "I'm scared too." His honesty surprised her. "I'm scared I'll fail you, that I won't be strong enough to stand up to my father when it really counts. But I'd rather try and fail with you than succeed alone in the life my father planned for me." Before Clara could overthink it, she closed the distance between them and kissed him. It was clumsy and unpracticed, nothing like the romantic stories she'd read, but it was real. Honest. A promise made with actions instead of words. Colton kissed her back, his hands gentle on her waist, and for the first time since this whole mess started, Clara felt like she might actually have some control over her own destiny. When they pulled apart, he was smiling. "Does this mean you're not running away 3 days before the wedding?" "I'm not running, but I'm also not pretending this is a fairy tale. We're two people trying to make the best of a bad situation. I'll take it." He tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. "We're going to be okay, Clara. Maybe not perfect, maybe not easy, but okay. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that hope wasn't just another trap waiting to spring closed. But the next 3 days tested that fragile hope to its breaking point. The creditors sent representatives demanding meetings, asking pointed questions about Edmund's health and the ranch's future. Colton handled them with calm authority, while Clara took notes, learning the business side of ranching faster than she'd ever learned anything in school. Vivian threw herself into wedding preparations with manic energy, designing decorations and planning the ceremony like her own happiness depended on its perfection. Clara let her sister have this understanding that Vivian needed something to control when everything else felt uncertain. Edmund improved enough to leave his bed but remained weak, his hands shaking when he tried to hold a pen. He called Clara to his room the night before the wedding, his face drawn and gray. "I never apologized properly," he said, "for the debt clauses, for putting you in this position, for being a coward who hid behind his daughter instead of facing his failures." Clara sat beside his bed, surprised to find she wasn't angry anymore, just tired. "Why did you do it, Father? Why did you borrow so much? Pride, stupidity, desperation." Edmund's laugh was bitter. "Your mother died, and I convinced myself, if I could just make the ranch successful enough, profitable enough, I could prove I was worth something. That I could provide for you girls the way she would have wanted. Instead, I buried us in debt and sacrificed you to dig us back out. You could have told me, could have asked for help instead of making decisions behind my back. Would you have agreed to marry Colton if I'd asked him?" Clara considered the question honestly. "Probably not at first, but maybe eventually. If you'd shown me the numbers, let me understand the stakes instead of forcing my hand. I didn't trust you to make the right choice." "You mean you didn't trust me to make your choice?" The words stung, but they were true. "You never saw me as capable of handling hard truths. You wanted to protect me by controlling me, and all you did was make me feel powerless." Edmund reached for her hand, his grip weak. "Can you forgive me?" Clara thought about it, about all the hurt and betrayal and manipulation, about how her father's choices had backed her into a corner she couldn't escape. But she also thought about how Colton was proving that maybe this corner wasn't so bad after all. "Ask me again in a year," she said. "After I've had time to see if this marriage you forced on me turns out to be worth it." "That's fair." Edmund's eyes drifted closed. "For what it's worth, I think Colton's a good man. Better than I deserve to have as a son-in-law." "He is, which is the only reason I'm going through with this." That night Clara couldn't sleep. She stood by her bedroom window watching the stars and trying to imagine what tomorrow would bring. In 12 hours, she'd be married. In 12 hours, her whole life would change. "Can't sleep either." Vivian's voice came from the doorway. Clara turned to find her sister wrapped in a shawl, her face pale in the moonlight. "Too much thinking." "Want company?" They sat together on Clara's bed like they had when they were children, finding comfort in each other's presence. "Are you happy about this?" Vivian asked quietly. "About marrying Colton?" "I don't know if happy is the right word. Hopeful, maybe. Scared, definitely." Clara pulled her knees to her chest. "What about you? Are you okay with me leaving? I'll miss you, but I'm also relieved." Vivian's admission surprised them both. "You're stronger than I am, Clara. You can build something good out of this situation. I just crumble under the pressure." "You're stronger than you think." "Maybe. Or maybe I've just gotten good at pretending." Vivian was quiet for a moment. "Colton's good to you. I see the way he looks at you, like you matter, like your opinions and your strength are things he values instead of problems to fix. It's strange, isn't it? Being valued for who you actually are, instead of who someone wants you to be." "It's more than strange. It's rare." Vivian squeezed her hand. "Don't waste it, Clara. Don't let fear or pride or stubbornness sabotage something that could actually be good." "When did you get so wise? Pain teaches lessons that comfort never could." They sat together until dawn broke. Two sisters facing an uncertain future with nothing but each other and a fragile hope that tomorrow might be better than yesterday. The sun rose on Clara's wedding day, with brutal indifference to the chaos churning in her chest. She dressed in her mother's wedding gown, altered to fit her frame, while Vivian fussed with the buttons and tried not to cry. "You look beautiful," Vivian whispered. "I look terrified." "That too." Vivian's hands shook as she fastened the last button. "But you're doing this anyway. That's what makes you brave." Downstairs, guests were already arriving, filling the house with noise and false cheer. Clara could hear Edmund's weak voice greeting people, playing the proud father, while his heart threatened to give out from the strain. "I should check on him," Clara said. "No, you should breathe and remember why you're doing this." Vivian caught her shoulders. "Colton's a good man, Clara, better than most. Hold on to that." But 20 minutes before the ceremony, Victor Mercer burst into the house with 2 lawyers and a sheriff, his face triumphant and cruel. "Stop everything," Victor announced to the assembled guests. "This wedding cannot proceed." Clara's stomach plummeted. Colton appeared from the crowd, his face dangerous. "What the hell are you doing? Preventing a legal catastrophe." Victor held up documents. "I've discovered that Edmund Hale misrepresented the value of his ranch holdings in our original contracts. The land surveys were falsified. The water rights claims are fraudulent. This entire merger is built on lies." Edmund went pale, swaying on his feet. "That's not true. I never— The surveys are right here, signed by you, claiming water access you don't legally possess." Victor's smile was vicious. "Which means our contracts are void due to fraud. The wedding is canceled, the merger is dead, and I'm calling in every loan Edmund owes to Mercer family creditors. Immediately." The room erupted in shocked whispers. Clara felt the floor tilt beneath her feet, felt years of careful planning disintegrate in seconds. But before she could speak, Colton's laugh cut through the noise like a blade. "Nice try, Father. But those surveys aren't fraudulent." Victor's confidence faltered. "Of course they are. I had them verified by a surveyor you paid to lie." Colton pulled out his own set of documents. "I had independent surveys done 3 weeks ago when I first suspected you'd try something like this. Edmund's water rights claims are completely legitimate. The only fraud here is yours." "You're bluffing." "No, he's not." The sheriff stepped forward, his expression apologetic but firm. "I've reviewed both sets of surveys, Mr. Mercer. The independent ones clearly show the Hale Ranch has legal access to the disputed water. Your surveyor's report appears to have been deliberately falsified." Victor's face went purple. "This is ridiculous. I demand—" "You demand nothing." Colton's voice could have cut glass. "You tried to sabotage this wedding, tried to destroy Edmund's ranch out of spite because I wouldn't let you control my marriage. Well, it didn't work. The wedding proceeds as planned, the merger stands, and you can take your fraudulent surveys and get the hell out. I'm your father. You're a manipulative bastard who spent my entire life trying to bend me to your will." Colton moved to stand beside Clara, his hand finding hers. "But I'm done being your puppet. Clara and I are getting married today. We're running these ranches our way, and you have no say in any of it. You'll fail without me. Maybe. But we'll fail on our own terms, not yours." The sheriff escorted Victor out, the older man still sputtering threats and promises of retaliation. The guests watched in stunned silence, clearly unsure if the wedding would actually proceed after such a scene. Clara gripped Colton's hand so hard her knuckles went white. "Did you really suspect he'd try this?" "I suspected he'd try something." Victor doesn't lose gracefully. Colton turned to face her. "Are you okay?" "No." "But I'm still standing." She looked at the assembled guests, at Edmund barely holding himself upright, at Vivian watching with terrified hope. "Let's get married before anything else explodes." The ceremony itself was a blur. Clara heard herself repeat vows, felt Colton's hand steady on hers, registered the preacher's words without really processing them. When Colton kissed her, sealing their marriage, she felt like she was drowning and being saved at the same time. "We did it," he whispered against her lips. "We're married. God help us both." The reception was tense, guests circulating with forced cheer while trying not to mention the earlier confrontation. Clara endured endless congratulations and knowing looks, everyone clearly wondering if this marriage would survive its first month. Edmund pulled her aside during the dancing, his face gray with exhaustion, but his eyes clearer than she'd seen in months. "I need to tell you something. About your mother." "Father, you should rest." "No, this can't wait." He pressed a worn envelope into her hands. "Your mother left this for you. Told me to give it to you on your wedding day. I almost didn't given how this marriage came about, but you deserve to know." Clara opened the envelope with shaking hands, pulling out a letter in her mother's familiar handwriting. The date was from 10 years ago, written when her mother knew she was dying. "My darling Clara," the letter began. "If you're reading this, you've found a man brave enough to marry you, which means he's either the best man alive or a complete fool. I pray it's the former. I'm leaving you something in this letter, proof that you're stronger than you know. The land deed to the northern pasture is in your name, not your father's. I made sure of it before I died, knowing Edmund's pride would eventually destroy him. That land includes the original water spring, the source of all water rights on the Hale Ranch. It's worth more than everything else combined. Use it wisely, daughter. Build something your father never could, a future based on honesty instead of debt." Clara read the letter twice, then a third time, her mind spinning. "The northern pasture is mine. Your mother put it in a trust for you. I couldn't touch it, couldn't sell it, couldn't use it as collateral." Edmund's voice broke. "She knew I'd ruin us, and she protected you from my failures. The deeds with the family lawyer has been for years. That means—" Clara's breath caught. "The water rights Victor was fighting over, the reason he wanted this merger. All legally yours, not mine, not the ranch's, yours." Edmund sagged against the wall. "I should have told you years ago, but I was ashamed. Your mother trusted you more than she trusted me, and she was right to." Clara's hands trembled as she folded the letter. Her mother had given her power, real power, and she hadn't even known it existed. She found Colton talking with ranch hands and pulled him aside. "We need to talk, now." She showed him the letter, watched his eyes widen as he read. "Clara, do you understand what this means? You own the water source. You have leverage over every ranch in 3 counties, including mine." "I know." Her voice was steady despite the earthquake happening in her chest. "Which is why we're going to use it to renegotiate everything." "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking your father wanted control, wanted to dominate these ranches and everyone in them. But he can't control what he doesn't own. That water source is mine, which means I control who gets access and on what terms." Colton's smile was fierce and proud. "You want to rewrite the power structure. I want to build something fair, something that doesn't rely on one family crushing everyone else." Clara's mind raced with possibilities. "We use the water rights to negotiate better terms with the creditors, force them to accept reasonable payment plans instead of predatory ones. We offer neighboring ranches fair water access in exchange for cooperative agreements instead of hostile competition. We prove there's a better way than your father's empire of fear and debt. He'll fight us on this. Let him fight. He can't win without water, and the water's mine." They called an emergency meeting that evening, still in their wedding clothes, gathering the creditors, neighboring ranchers, and anyone with a stake in the water rights dispute. Victor attended, his face black with fury. Clara stood before them all, her mother's letter clutched in one hand and Colton's hand gripped in the other. "I'm offering a new deal. Fair water access for everyone, cooperative management of the shared resources, and reasonable payment terms on existing debts. In exchange, we build a community instead of a kingdom." "That's socialist nonsense," Victor spat. "This land was built on competition, on the strong dominating the weak." "No, it was built on my mother's sacrifice and my father's desperation and your greed." Clara's voice rang clear and hard. "And I'm done watching that pattern destroy everyone it touches. We do this my way, or I shut off water access to everyone until you all come to terms." "You wouldn't dare." "Try me." The room erupted in arguments, some ranchers supporting Clara's plan, others backing Victor's traditional approach. But slowly, one by one, people started agreeing. Started seeing that cooperation might actually benefit them more than constant warfare over resources. The largest creditor, a banker named Morrison, stood slowly. "I'll agree to Miss Mercer's terms on one condition." "Mrs. Mercer," Clara corrected. "And what's your condition?" "That you prove this cooperative model can actually work. Give us 1 year of successful operation, show us the numbers demonstrate that fair dealing is more profitable than cutthroat competition. If you can do that, I'll convert the rest of Edmund's debt to long-term loans with reasonable interest." Clara looked at Colton, saw her own determination reflected in his eyes. Done. They spent the next 3 hours hammering out details, drawing up agreements, forcing Victor to watch his empire of control crumble into something more democratic. By the time the meeting ended, Clara's feet ached and her head pounded, but they had the framework of something real. Victor cornered them as the last guests departed. "You think you've won, but this idealistic fantasy will fall apart within months. People are greedy, Clara. They'll take advantage of your generosity and bleed you dry." "Maybe," Clara said. "Or maybe they'll surprise us. Either way, we're willing to take the risk." "You're a fool, both of you. Better a fool with principles than a success built on crushing everyone around us." Colton stepped between his father and Clara. "We're done here, Victor. Go home. This isn't over." "Yes, it is. You just haven't accepted it yet." Victor left, and Clara finally let herself feel the full weight of the day. She sagged against Colton, exhaustion and relief and terror all crashing together. "We really did it," she whispered. "We really did." He held her up, his strength steady and reliable. "You were incredible in there. The way you took control, the way you stood up to all of them. I was terrified. You were terrifying, in the best possible way." He kissed her forehead. "Come on, let's go home." He took her to the house he'd built now, mostly finished lamplight, glowing warm through the windows. Inside, it smelled of fresh wood and new beginnings. Their belongings were already there, moved earlier by ranch hands, but it still felt empty and full of possibility at the same time. "It's ours," Clara said, walking through rooms that belonged to them and no one else. "Really ours. Really ours." Colton pulled her close. "And tomorrow, we start the hard work of proving we can actually make this cooperative model work." "Are you scared?" "Absolutely. But I'd rather be scared with you than comfortable under my father's thumb." Clara kissed him, then really kissed him, pouring all her hope and fear and fragile trust into that contact. He responded with equal intensity, and for the first time she let herself believe this might actually work. They made love that night, like two people learning a new language together, awkward and genuine, and nothing like the polished romance of storybooks. But it was real, and real was better than perfect. The next morning they woke to find Vivian on their doorstep, her face panicked. "Father collapsed again. The doctor's there now." They rushed to the Hale Ranch, finding Edmund unconscious and barely breathing. The doctor worked quickly, but his expression was grim. "His heart's giving out. Could be hours, could be days. You should prepare yourselves." Clara sat beside her father's bed, holding his clammy hand. "Don't you dare die now, old man. Not when I finally have leverage to make you proud." Edmund's eyes fluttered open, focusing on her with effort. "Already proud. Should have told you sooner." "You're telling me now. That's enough. Your mother would have loved seeing you like this. Strong. Free." His breathing was shallow and labored. "Take care of Vivian. She's not as strong as you." "I will." "And Clara." His grip tightened weakly. "Don't let the ranch own you the way it owned me. It's just land. You're so much more." He closed his eyes and Clara thought he'd slipped away. But then he spoke again, his voice barely a whisper. "Forgive me." "I forgive you, Father. Rest now." Edmund Hale died 3 days later, surrounded by his daughters and the husband of one. Clara cried, but not for the father he'd been, for the father he might have been if pride and fear hadn't consumed him. They buried him beside her mother, and Clara read from the letter he'd given her at the wedding. He made mistakes. she told the assembled mourners. He let debt and desperation drive him to terrible choices. But in the end, he tried to make things right. That's more than many men can say. After the funeral, Clara and Colton threw themselves into running the combined ranches, proving that cooperation could work. It wasn't easy. There were disputes over water allocation, arguments about shared resources, moments when Clara wanted to quit and just sell everything. But Colton was always there, steady and supportive, reminding her why they'd started this fight in the first place. 6 months into their marriage, Morrison the banker returned with an accountant and a team of lawyers. Clara's stomach nodded, certain they were coming to call in the debts to prove her experiment had failed. Instead, Morrison smiled. "Your numbers are remarkable, Mrs. Mercer. Profit margins higher than anyone predicted, community cooperation levels unprecedented, and every ranch in the collective showing improvement." So, Clara barely dared to hope. "So I'm converting the remaining debts to long-term loans as promised. 20-year terms, fair interest, no acceleration clauses. You've earned it." The relief nearly buckled Clara's knees. Colton caught her, his arm strong around her waist. "We did it," he whispered. "We did it." That evening, they sat on the porch of their house, watching the sun set over land that now felt truly theirs. Vivian had moved into the old Hale Ranch house, running it with surprising competence and new confidence. Victor had retreated to his own lands, sulking, but no longer actively sabotaging them. The creditors were satisfied, the neighboring ranchers were thriving, and Clara finally felt like she could breathe. "I never thought I'd be happy in an arranged marriage." Clara set her head on Colton's shoulder. "It stopped being arranged the moment we chose each other." His fingers laced through hers. "Everything after that has been us building something real." "Do you ever regret it? Walking away from your father's empire, fighting him so hard?" "Not for a second. What we have here, what we've built together, it's worth more than all of Victor's land and money combined." Clara turned to look at him, seeing the man who'd proven himself worthy of trust through 1,000 small actions and several massive ones. "I love you," she said, the words coming easier than she'd expected. "I don't know when it happened exactly, but somewhere between fighting creditors and rebuilding ranches and standing up to your father, I fell completely in love with you." Colton's smile was bright enough to rival the setting sun. "I love you too. Have for weeks, maybe months. Was just waiting for you to catch up." "Arrogant bastard." "You're arrogant bastard." "Yeah, mine." They kissed as the sun disappeared behind the mountains, two people who'd started as strangers, forced into marriage and become partners who chose each other every single day. A year later, Clara stood in the same spot, her hand resting on her swollen belly, watching Colton work with the ranch hands to repair a fence. Vivian had gotten engaged to a kind man from town, who valued her gentleness instead of trying to break it. Victor had grudgingly attended the wedding, his presence a silent acknowledgement that maybe his son's way wasn't entirely foolish after all. The cooperative they'd built was thriving, expanding to include more ranches, creating a model that other territories were starting to notice and emulate. Clara's mother's water source had become the foundation of something bigger than anyone imagined, not an empire built on domination, but a community built on mutual support. Clara pressed her hand against the baby moving inside her, feeling the future literally growing within her body. This child would inherit a different legacy than either she or Colton had received. Not debts and manipulation and forced choices, but a ranch built on honesty, a community built on cooperation, and parents who'd chosen each other and kept choosing each other every day. Colton noticed her watching and waved, his smile as genuine as the first day she'd seen it. She waved back, feeling the weight of everything they'd overcome and everything they'd built, settling into something that felt suspiciously like contentment. She'd started this journey as collateral in her father's desperate gamble, a woman sold to save a failing ranch. But through fighting for her own power, claiming her mother's legacy, and partnering with a man brave enough to stand beside her instead of in front of her, Clara had transformed from the outcast sister into the woman who'd rebuilt an empire on principles instead of greed. She'd stolen Colton Mercer's soul, not through manipulation or beauty, but through the simple act of being exactly who she was, sharp-edged, blunt-spoken, and unwilling to settle for anything less than genuine partnership. Together, they'd proven that love built on respect and equality was stronger than any empire built on fear and control, and the life they were creating would stand as testament to the truth that sometimes the best things come from having the courage to choose each other when the whole world says you have no choice at all.